5 inventions worth over $100 billion, every single one created by accident. And the people who made them? They got almost nothing. It's 1945, and Percy Spencer is standing in a lab at Raytheon's manufacturing plant in Waltham, Massachusetts. He's testing magnetrons. These are the vacuum tubes that generate microwaves for radar systems, the same technology that helped the Allies detect enemy aircraft during the war. Percy isn't a physicist. He isn't an engineer with a degree from MIT. He's a man who never finished grammar school. Percy was orphaned before he turned 2. His father died when he was 18 months old. His mother left shortly after. He was raised by an uncle who also died before Percy hit 7. By 12, he dropped out of school and took a job at a spool mill, working 12 hours a day. By 18, he joined the Navy. He had never seen or touched a radio in his life, but he taught himself trigonometry, calculus, chemistry, physics, and metallurgy by reading textbooks at night. No teacher, no classroom, just a kid in a bunk with a book and a flashlight. By the time World War II started, Percy Spencer knew more about microwave radiation than most of the scientists Raytheon employed. The military needed magnetrons, thousands of them. Radar was the technology that let the Allies see enemy planes before they arrived, and every radar station, every ship, every aircraft carrier needed magnetrons to function. But Raytheon could only produce about 17 a day. The process was slow, delicate, and expensive. They gave the problem to Percy. Within months, he redesigned the entire manufacturing process. He replaced hand assembly with a system that could be run by unskilled workers. Production jumped from 17 units a day to 2,600. 2,600. A man who never sat in a college classroom had just outperformed every engineer in the building. The Navy awarded him the Distinguished Public Service Award, one of the highest honors a civilian can receive. But that's not what Percy Spencer is remembered for. On a routine day, Percy is standing next to an active magnetron when he notices something strange. The chocolate bar in his pocket is melting. Not slowly, not from body heat, it's softening from the inside out, as though something invisible is cooking it. Most people would have wiped off the chocolate and moved on. Percy Spencer is not most people. He sends a colleague to get unpopped popcorn. He holds the kernels near the magnetron. They explode. Popcorn flies across the lab. The next morning, he brings in an egg. He points the magnetron at it. The egg begins to tremble, then shake. Then the shell cracks and the yolk erupts in a colleague's face. Percy doesn't apologize. He grabs a notebook. Within days, he builds a metal box around a magnetron, trapping the microwave energy inside. He cuts a hole in the side, adds a door, and puts food in the box. It cooks, fast, from every direction at once. No flame, no element, no preheating. Just invisible waves turning cold food hot in minutes. He has just invented the microwave oven. Percy walks the prototype to Raytheon's executives. They see it and immediately understand what they're looking at. This isn't a novelty. This is the future of cooking. Raytheon files the patent on October 8, 1945. In 1947, they released the first commercial model. It's called the Radar Range. It stands nearly 6 feet tall, weighs 750 pounds, and costs about $5,000. It's the size of a refrigerator and priced like a car. Nobody buys one. For the next 2 decades, the microwave oven is a curiosity. Restaurants buy a few, hotels experiment with them, but the price is too high and the machine is too big for ordinary people. Then, in the late 1960s, Japanese manufacturers figure out how to make them smaller and cheaper. By 1971, you can buy a countertop microwave for under $500. By the end of the decade, they're in millions of American homes. College dorms, break rooms, apartments, anywhere someone needs to heat food fast without turning on a stove. By the 1980s, the microwave oven is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. By the 90s, over 90% of American households own one. Entire categories of food are invented around it. Microwave popcorn, microwave dinners, hot pockets, lean cuisine. The frozen food aisle exists, in large part, because of what Percy Spencer discovered standing next to a magnetron. Today, the global microwave oven market is worth over $20 billion a year, and that doesn't count the billions more generated by the microwave food industry that grew around it. And Percy Spencer? For inventing one of the most important kitchen appliances in modern history, Raytheon paid him a one-time gratuity of $2. That wasn't special treatment. That was the standard payment the company gave any employee who filed a patent. $2, the same amount you'd leave as a tip for a cup of coffee. Percy never received a single cent in royalties. He did rise through the ranks at Raytheon, eventually becoming senior vice president. He earned 300 patents over his career. He was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame, but he never saw a fraction of the billions his accidental discovery generated. Percy Spencer died in 1970 at the age of 76. He was a self-taught orphan who changed the way the entire world eats, and the company that owned his idea paid him less than the price of a sandwich. $2. That's more than most inventors on this list ever got. But at least Percy's invention worked the way he planned. The next one was supposed to do the exact opposite. It's 1968, and Spencer Silver is hunched over a workbench at 3M's research laboratory in St. Paul, Minnesota. He has one job: create the strongest adhesive the world has ever seen. 3M wants a glue so powerful it can bond aircraft parts together. Something industrial, something permanent, something unbreakable. Spencer fails. What he creates instead is possibly the weakest adhesive in the history of chemistry. It sticks to surfaces, but only barely. You can peel it off with your fingertip. It leaves no residue. It doesn't bond permanently to anything. By every metric 3M uses to measure success, Spencer Silver's adhesive is a disaster. But Spencer doesn't throw it away. Something about this glue fascinates him. It's pressure sensitive. It can be reused. It sticks, then releases, then sticks again, over and over. The adhesive forms tiny, indestructible microspheres that sit on a surface like a bed of rubber balls. Push down, they grip. Pull up, they release. No residue, no damage. He's never seen anything like it. He's convinced it's useful. He just can't figure out for what. For the next 5 years, Spencer Silver becomes the most annoying man at 3M. He walks the hallways like a man carrying a secret nobody wants to hear. He gives presentations. He holds seminars. He corners colleagues in the cafeteria. He calls it his solution looking for a problem. Every department turns him down. Adhesives are supposed to be strong. That's the whole point. Nobody at 3M can imagine a use for glue that doesn't really glue. Then, in 1974, a chemical engineer named Art Fry sits down in a church pew on a Sunday morning. Art sings in his church choir, and every week he uses little scraps of paper to mark the pages in his hymn book. And every week, the scraps fall out. They slide between the pages, drift to the floor, and by the time he needs to find the next song, he's flipping through the book like a madman while the rest of the choir has already started singing. On this particular Sunday, Art remembers something. A seminar he attended years ago, given by a colleague who wouldn't stop talking about a weird adhesive that sticks, but doesn't stick. Art Fry has just found Spencer Silver's problem. He goes back to the lab and applies Silver's adhesive to small pieces of paper. They stick to the page. They peel off cleanly. They don't tear the paper. They don't leave marks. He puts one on a report and hands it to his supervisor. His supervisor reads the report, peels off the note, sticks it on another document, and passes it along. Within days, the little yellow notes are circulating through 3M's offices like a virus. In 1977, 3M test launches the product in 4 cities under the name Press and Peel. It bombs. Nobody understands what they're supposed to do with sticky paper, so 3M tries something different. In 1980, they flood the city of Boise, Idaho with free samples. They hand them out to every office, every business, every secretary. The strategy is simple. Once people use them, they can't stop. It works. People stick them on phones, on desks, on computer monitors, on doors. They write reminders, leave messages, mark pages. Within weeks, offices that received free samples are calling 3M begging to buy more. Reorder rates hit over 90%. 3M rolls the product out nationally under a new name: Post-it notes. The timing is perfect. The 1980s are the decade of the office boom. Cubicles, filing cabinets, corporate memos. Post-it notes fit into this world like they were designed for it. Within a decade, they're one of the most recognized office products on Earth. They show up in movies, in boardrooms, in classrooms, on refrigerators. 3M sells them in over 150 countries. The company generates well over $1 billion a year from Post-it products alone. Spencer Silver? He was a 3M employee. The patent belonged to the company. He received his salary, a few awards, and a spot in the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Art Fry got the same. No royalties, no equity, no bonus tied to sales. Spencer Silver spent 30 years at 3M, retired in 1996, and died in 2021 at the age of 80. He never saw a single dollar beyond his paycheck from the product that made his employer billions. He tried to make the strongest glue in the world. He made the weakest. and that failure made someone else a fortune. Silver spent 5 years selling an idea nobody wanted. The next inventor spent a lifetime, and it cost him everything. It's 1834, and Charles Goodyear is standing inside a retail store in Philadelphia that sells rubber goods. Life jackets, shoes, waterproof coats. Business is booming. Everybody wants rubber. There's just one problem. Rubber, in its natural state, is terrible. In the summer, it melts. It turns into a sticky, foul-smelling mess that clings to everything it touches. In the winter, it cracks and shatters like glass. A rubber coat bought in April becomes a shapeless puddle by July and a brittle shell by December. Customers are furious. Stores are accepting returns by the truckload. The rubber industry, which just a few years earlier seemed like the future of American manufacturing, is collapsing. Charles Goodyear looks at this disaster and sees opportunity. He becomes obsessed. He's going to fix rubber. He's going to find a way to make it withstand heat and cold. He has no chemistry training, no laboratory, no funding. What he has is a kitchen, a wife who is slowly running out of patience, and an unshakable belief that he is one experiment away from changing the world. For the next 5 years, Charles Goodyear experiments with rubber every single day. He mixes it with everything he can find: magnesium, quicklime, nitric acid, turpentine. He boils it, he freezes it, he bakes it in his wife's oven. His kitchen smells like a chemical fire. His children go hungry. His neighbors think he's insane. He is also constantly in debt. He borrows money from friends, from relatives, from anyone who will listen to him talk about rubber for more than 5 minutes. His wife begs him to stop. His children wear secondhand clothes. The house smells so bad from chemical fumes that neighbors complain. None of it matters to Charles. He is arrested for unpaid debts multiple times. He doesn't stop experimenting. He conducts experiments in jail, using whatever materials he can get his hands on. When he gets out, he borrows more money and starts again. Then, one winter day in 1839, it happens. Goodyear is in his kitchen, demonstrating one of his latest rubber compounds to a group of visitors. He's mixed rubber with sulfur. As he waves the sample around to make a point, it slips from his hand and lands on the hot stove. Most people would expect the rubber to melt. It doesn't. Instead, it chars around the edges, but the center becomes firm, flexible, and smooth. It doesn't crack. It doesn't melt. It holds its shape. Charles Goodyear has just discovered vulcanization. By accident. He knows immediately what he's found. But knowing and proving are two different things. He spends the next 5 years perfecting the process, running thousands of experiments to figure out the exact temperature and the exact ratio of sulfur to rubber. His family is starving. His friends have stopped lending him money. Creditors are knocking on his door. But Goodyear won't stop. He can't. He finally receives a patent on June 15, 1844. But the patent doesn't make him rich. It makes him a target. Manufacturers across America and Europe begin copying his process without permission. In England, a man named Thomas Hancock examines a piece of Goodyear's vulcanized rubber, reverse engineers the method, and files a British patent before Goodyear can. In France, competitors flood the market with knockoff products. Goodyear sues them. He hires lawyers he can't afford. He travels to Europe to defend his invention in foreign courts. He wins some cases and loses others. Every lawsuit costs money he doesn't have. The legal fees pile up faster than the settlements come in. He borrows more. He falls deeper into debt. In 1855, while attending the World's Fair in Paris, Charles Goodyear is arrested by French authorities. The charge? Unpaid debts. The inventor of vulcanized rubber sits in a Paris prison cell, while exhibits made possible by his own invention surround the fairgrounds outside. He is eventually released, but his health is failing. Years of exposure to chemicals have taken their toll. On July 1, 1860, Charles Goodyear dies in New York City. He is 59 years old. His estate owes $200,000. In today's money, that's roughly $7 million. Here's the part that stings. 38 years after Goodyear's death in 1898, a man named Frank Seiberling founds a rubber company in Akron, Ohio. He names it the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. It's an homage, a tribute to the man who made the rubber industry possible. Charles Goodyear has no connection to the company. His family receives nothing, no stake, no royalties, not even a courtesy check. Today, Goodyear Tire is worth over $30 billion. The man whose name is on every tire, every blimp, every storefront, died in debt and never saw a dime. He gave rubber to the world took it and stamped his name on something he never built. If you're still here, you already know these stories only get crazier. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Trust me, you're going to want to hear how this ends. Goodyear gave his life to rubber, but not every accidental invention starts with obsession. Sometimes it starts with a customer who won't shut up about his French fries. It's 1853, and George Crumb is working the kitchen at Moon's Lake House, a popular lakeside restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York. George is half African-American, half Native American, and one of the most respected chefs in the region. The restaurant attracts wealthy tourists from New York City who travel upstate to enjoy the mineral springs and the horse races. George's cooking is one of the reasons they keep coming back. On this particular evening, a customer orders fried potatoes. George prepares them the way he always does. Thick cut, fried in lard, lightly salted. Standard for the time. The plate goes out. It comes back. The customer says the potatoes are too thick and undercooked. George frowns, cuts them thinner, fries them longer, and sends the plate back out. It comes back again. Same complaint. Too thick, not crispy enough. George Crumb has had enough. He's not a man who takes criticism well, and this customer has now sent his food back twice. So George decides to teach this person a lesson. He grabs a potato and slices it as thin as he possibly can. Paper thin. So thin you can almost see through them. He drops the slices into boiling lard and fries them until they curl up and turn golden brown. He pulls them out, dumps an absurd amount of salt on top, and sends the plate out to the dining room. His plan is simple. The potatoes will be so thin and so salty that the customer won't be able to eat them. It's a petty act of culinary revenge. The customer takes one bite, then another, then clears the plate and asks for more. The table next to him orders the same thing, then the table across the room. Within weeks, George Crumb's Saratoga chips are the most popular item on the menu. Tourists start coming to Moon's Lake House specifically for the chips. George eventually opens his own restaurant with a basket of chips on every table. But George Crumb never files a patent. He never licenses the recipe. He never tries to mass-produce them. To George, they're just a side dish, a happy accident born out of spite. His restaurant, Crumb's Place, becomes a local landmark. He puts baskets of chips on every table, free of charge. Wealthy tourists, politicians, and even celebrities make the trip to Saratoga Springs just to eat at his place. For decades, George Crumb is one of the most famous chefs in New York State, but he never thinks bigger than his own kitchen. He never considers that a potato chip could be put in a bag and sold in a store. Meanwhile, other cooks across the country figure out the recipe. It's not complicated. Slice a potato thin, fry it, add salt. By the early 1900s, potato chips are being packaged and sold in grocery stores. In 1926, a woman named Laura Scudder figures out how to seal chips in wax paper bags, keeping them fresh for weeks instead of hours. That single innovation turns potato chips from a local restaurant novelty into a mass-market product. Companies like Lay's, Pringles, and Ruffles follow. They add flavors, they add ridges, they add marketing budgets bigger than some countries' GDP. The global snack food industry builds itself on the back of George Crumb's bad mood. George dies in 1914 at the age of 82. He lived comfortably. He ran a successful restaurant. But the snack he invented out of pure spite is now worth over $35 billion a year. George Crumb never saw a penny of it. He didn't lose the money. He didn't get cheated. He just never realized what he had. A dish made out of anger that became the most popular snack on earth. And the chef who made it walked away from billions because he simply didn't care. Crumb never filed a single patent. He didn't think it mattered. Roy Plunkett filed one. It just didn't make a difference. It's 1938, and Roy Plunkett is 27 years old. He's fresh out of Ohio State University with a doctorate in chemistry, and he's working at DuPont's Jackson Laboratory in Deepwater, New Jersey. His assignment is simple. DuPont wants him to develop a new refrigerant gas, something safer and more efficient than what's currently on the market. Roy is working with a gas called tetrafluoroethylene, a colorless, odorless compound stored in pressurized steel cylinders. On the morning of April 6th, Roy and his lab assistant, Jack Reebok, wheel a cylinder of tetrafluoroethylene into the lab. They open the valve to release the gas into a reaction chamber. Nothing comes out. Roy checks the valve. It's open. He tilts the cylinder. It's not empty. It weighs the same as a full one. Something is inside, but no gas is coming out. Most chemists would have marked the cylinder as defective, tossed it in a corner, and grabbed a new one. Roy Plunkett doesn't. He picks up a hacksaw and cuts the cylinder open. Inside, he finds a white, waxy substance coating the walls of the tank. The gas hasn't leaked. It hasn't evaporated. It has spontaneously polymerized. The molecules have linked together on their own, forming an entirely new material that nobody has ever seen before. Roy scrapes the substance out and starts testing it. What he discovers is extraordinary. The material is incredibly slippery. Nothing sticks to it. Not water, not oil, not acid. Not even the most corrosive chemicals in DuPont's inventory can damage it. It resists heat up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit without breaking down. It's chemically inert, meaning it doesn't react with virtually anything. It has one of the lowest coefficients of friction of any solid material ever measured. In plain English, it might be the slipperiest thing humans have ever created. Roy Plunkett wasn't trying to make a new material. He was trying to make refrigerant gas. But by accident, he has just created the most non-stick substance on the planet. DuPont names it polytetrafluoroethylene. The world will know it as Teflon. At first, DuPont doesn't know what to do with it. The material is expensive to produce, and there's no obvious consumer application. But then World War II breaks out, and the Manhattan Project needs a material that can withstand the corrosive chemicals used in uranium enrichment. Teflon is the answer. It's used to line valves, pipes, and seals throughout the nuclear program. Without Teflon, the development of the atomic bomb would have been significantly harder. After the war, DuPont begins exploring commercial uses. Teflon coats the nose cones of spacecraft. It insulates wiring in fighter jets. It lines artificial heart valves and surgical implants. NASA uses it in spacesuits and heat shields. Every time humanity pushes into an environment too extreme for ordinary materials, Teflon is there. But the real money isn't in space, it's in the kitchen. In 1954, a French engineer named Marc Gregoire figures out how to bond Teflon to aluminum after his wife asks him to coat her cooking pans with the stuff he uses on his fishing tackle. He starts a company called Tefal. The non-stick frying pan is born, and that changes everything. Suddenly, Teflon is in every kitchen in America. Eggs slide off pans, cheese doesn't burn, cleanup takes seconds instead of minutes. Housewives across the country throw out their old cast iron and buy non-stick. Then every kitchen in Europe, then everywhere. The brand becomes synonymous with non-stick. Politicians who avoid scandal are called Teflon. The word enters the dictionary as a metaphor for anything that nothing can touch. DuPont builds an empire around the material, generating over $1 billion a year in Teflon-related revenue. Roy Plunkett? He was a DuPont employee. The patent belonged to the company. He received the Lavoisier Medal for outstanding technical achievement. He was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. He got plaques, certificates, and handshakes from executives who made fortunes off his accident. But he never received royalties. He never received a percentage. He received a chemist's salary and a retirement package. Roy Plunkett died in 1994 at the age of 83. He had spent his entire career at DuPont. The company thanked him with awards. The world thanked him with a word. Nothing sticks to Teflon, including the royalties. 5 accidents. 5 inventions that changed the way the world eats, works, drives, and cooks. Combined, they're worth well over $100 billion. And the 5 people who made them possible? One got $2. One got a salary. One died $200,000 in debt. One never bothered to ask. And one got a medal. The next time you heat up leftovers in 30 seconds, stick a reminder on your monitor. Drive 60 miles an hour on rubber tires. Grab a bag of chips from a gas station, or fry an egg that slides right off the pan. Just remember, somebody made that possible, and somebody else got paid. If you want more stories like this, we put out new ones every week. Subscribe and hit the bell. The next one's already on the way.